Alright, we are live.
Alright, we are live. Alright,
And Lizzie.
Alright, Lizzie. Alright, Lizzie.
Why is that so
I
horrible?
don't know. Hold on. Technical issues.
Technical issues. Technical issues. Technical issues.
You guys really tuned in?
What is
Okay,
going on?
I don't know what's going on. Okay, that's
Okay, that's
uh-oh.
Okay, that's
Okay, I'm turning my sound off. Sorry about that. We're trying to figure stuff out. Anyways, hi, I'm Tony, CEO of Zappos, and I have the first question here, which is, what does it mean to be indie? And I was actually asking right before the show to Liz, who was in the background there, exactly what was meant by this question. And I guess for me, the way I think of it, I don't necessarily use the word indie myself personally. The way I think about it is really about having the entrepreneurial spirit, and that doesn't apply to just business. There's a lot of people that I think have the entrepreneurial spirit that are not in the business world, and for me, it's really about having that combination of creativity and passion, and figuring out how to get something done when you don't necessarily have all the support or resources that you would ideally like to have. One of my favorite quotes, and I forget who actually said this, is it's not ever a question of having enough resources, it's a question of having enough resourcefulness. And so for me, people that display the entrepreneurial spirit that are indie are the people that are really resourceful and figure out a way to get things done that are creative and out of the box. And one of my favorite shows growing up was this TV show called MacGyver, where he'd never have exactly what he needed, and but you knew that by the end of the hour, he'd somehow figure out how to put together duct tape and a paper clip and a business card and make a sailboat and solve the world's problems. And so, for me, part of what I love about being an entrepreneur is it's basically like getting to play MacGyver, but in real life. So, let's see. Question: when you sold Link Exchange at age 24, sorry, and what went through your head when you signed those papers? What compelled you to start the company on your own in the first place? Well, initially, so prior to Link Exchange, I was working for a big corporation called Oracle. This was fresh out of college, and basically, I didn't last very long there. I resigned from Oracle after only about 5 months because I realized this whole the corporate world just wasn't really for me, and it was very structured. And for me, I really wanted to be able to be much more creative and just try out different things. And so, more out of boredom than anything else, my roommate Sanjay and I, just over a weekend, came up with this idea for Link Exchange. And originally it was more just, oh, let's just try this thing out for the weekend and see what happens. And it kind of just snowballed, and it turned out that the idea behind Link Exchange, which was this cooperative online advertising network, and this was back in the early days of the internet, 1996. We within a week we knew that this was going to go somewhere, and we ended up growing that company to about 100 or so people, and then sold the company to Microsoft 2.5 years later. But what a lot of people don't know is the real reason why we ended up selling the company, and the real reason is because it just ended up not being a fun place to work at anymore, and the company culture went completely downhill. And I remember when it was just 5 or 10 of us, it was a lot of fun. It was your typical .com back in the day. We were working around the clock, sleeping under our desks, had no idea what day of the week it was, but it was a lot of fun and really exciting as we were growing. And as we started to grow, we hired friends and friends of friends I remember one of my friends was on this cross-country road trip from New York, and we needed a little extra help for the weekend, and then that became 2 weeks, and then a month, and he ended up actually joining the company. So this whole strategy of hiring friends and friends of friends worked really well for us until we got to about 20 people, and then we ran into a really big problem, and the problem was we basically ran out of friends. And so then we had to figure out how to hire people based on resumes and interviews and so on. And we were fresh out of college, had never really done that before, and kind of learned a lot through trial and error. And I think we ended up doing a pretty good job in terms of hiring people with the right skill sets and experiences, but we just didn't know any better to pay attention to company culture. And by the time we got to 100 people, I myself dreaded getting out of bed to go to my own company, which was definitely a weird feeling. And so that's actually what led us to sell the company to Microsoft. Shortly after sale, I left, the other co-founder Sanjay left, and in fact, most of the early employees all left. So when you ask, how did it feel to sell the company, from that perspective, it was actually pretty sad. As it turned out, we got super lucky with the timing. It was during the dot-com boom, and so it worked out well financially. And through that, started investing in different internet companies, which is what eventually led me to Zappos. Originally, Zappos was just one of 27 investments that I had made, but over the course of the year, I realized that for me, investing was actually kind of boring. I felt like I was sitting on the sidelines and really missed being part of building something. So within a year, I joined Zappos full time and been with Zappos ever since. And Zappos was founded in 1999. Let's see, next question. What was the allure of Zappos, and why did you choose to invest in and join them? So, as I said, originally it was just one of many investments, and we were just making investments in different internet companies. And, for me, I've never been a shoe person. I used to wear one pair of shoes for 2 years until there were holes in them, and then buy the same pair again. But then, over time, realized that actually, out of all the investments we had made, not only was Zappos the most promising, there was a lot of growth going on, but I really, really liked the people there. One of those people is a guy named Fred, who is still with us here. In fact, that's his seat behind me, and so we've been together for 12 years now, and 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 I think partly because of that, and just over time, our culture has grown, and because I definitely didn't want to repeat the same mistake I'd made at our previous company, and today at Zappos, culture is our #1 priority, and as it turns out, there's actually research that's been done that has shown that companies with strong cultures actually tend to outperform companies that don't have strong cultures. Can you still be indie with a company as large as Zappos? So I would actually, in the context of this question, some viewers may know that Amazon actually acquired Zappos about a year and a half ago, and it's actually very different from most acquisitions that Amazon has done. In most of their acquisitions, the plan is to take the company being acquired, integrate it into the parent company, and then over time, the original company kind of loses its identity and joins the mothership. And for us, as a precondition for even doing the deal, we told them we'd only consider it if we could remain independent, if we could continue to grow the Zappos brand, culture, and our way of doing business our way. And they agreed to that. So from our point of view, it's basically as if we swapped out our board of directors with a new one. And instead of flying to San Francisco once a quarter for a board meeting, I fly to Seattle once a quarter for a 2-hour meeting. And we're actually located here in Las Vegas, and definitely recommend for anyone ever coming to Las Vegas. We offer tours to the public, and you can actually sign up for a tour on a website that's set up just for that. If you go to tours.zappos.com and sign up, and when you come take a tour, you'll see that there's no sign of Amazon around, and also I think for us, going back to that whole entrepreneurial spirit thing, that's something that we strive for here at Zappos, no matter what size we are. Here in Vegas, we've got about I think 1,200 employees, and overall in the company, closer to 3,000 because we also have a warehouse in Kentucky. But that's definitely one of the things that that I want to try to make sure that we continue to maintain as we grow. Because most cultures, most companies, as they get bigger, the culture ends up going downhill. And not only do we want to prevent that from happening, but we actually want the culture to get stronger and stronger and scale. And so the only way I can think of for that to happen is if every employee views as part of his or her job the responsibility to live and inspire the Zappos culture in others. And that's something that we really, ultimately the culture is it's not what I decide, it's what all of us decide we want to do with it at Zappos. Can you share some advice on how to start a clothing company? So I'm not actually much of a clothing or shoe guy. My passion is really more on the customer service side and the culture side of business. And so we've got a great merchandising team that loves clothing and footwear and the other product categories that we sell. So I can't speak specifically to a clothing company, but I can talk about a company in general. Just make sure that the people that you hire are people that really are people that you would choose to, especially I'd say when the company is smaller. It's weird how the decisions you make when the company is smaller kind of last throughout the entire life of the company, and definitely make sure that the people that you hire are people that you enjoy being around. Right? Don't hire people just for their skill set. Make sure that they are going to be a good part of the culture that you want to help create for the company. We know you made Zappos investment through Venture Frogs. Have you since made other good investments? How's that working, and is Venture Frogs still in operation? So Venture Frogs was the fund that Alfred, who was the previous CFO at Zappos, and I were funding back in 98, 99. And basically, the fund, we made 27 investments, and all the investments were made essentially within the first year. And so while it's technically still around, we haven't made any investments for over a decade. And there's some other companies that we invested in that were successful from a financial point of view. There was a company called Mongo Music that got sold to Microsoft, a company called Tell Me, which I forget what company that was sold to. I think it might have been Microsoft. We invested in OpenTable. There's invested in SGs. So I would say roughly about a third of the investments we made money, a third probably broke even, and a third we lost money on. But really, the vast majority of our returns from that fund was from the investment in Zappos. What have you borrowed from the Amazon culture? So that's interesting because Amazon has its own unique, strong culture that obviously works well for them. And people do ask us, is the Zappos culture going to rub off onto Amazon or vice versa? And I would say no. Our culture, we have a lot of things in common, but if you come visit our offices and then go visit Amazon's offices, it's very clear which one is Zappos and which one is Amazon. You can definitely feel the difference. And so the things we have in common are that, and part of the reason why we ended up partnering with Amazon is because what I really like about Amazon and how is that it's very analogous to how we think about things here at Zappos. It's always about the long term. It's not about how do we make more money this quarter or this year or even 2 years from now. It's what's best for the company 10 years from now and what's best for our customers 10 years from now. The other thing I think that we have in common is we're both really, really customer focused, and we just approach customers in different ways. For Amazon, they're all about selection, convenience, and low prices. And so because of that, a lot of the stuff they do, they take I would classify as a high-tech approach to really making their customers happy. And for us, it's really, rather than high tech, I think we take a high touch approach. We want customers to call us on the phone, and we're not trying to get you off the phone, and you don't even have to place an order through the phone. It's really just about connecting in a personal way with our customers, whether it's by phone or by email or live chat and so on. And so, we share those two different philosophies, uh, but we have our own unique culture here at Zappos that works well for us, and they have their own culture there that works well for them. Your returns policy has been an important part of building your shoe business. Any tie? I'm not sure if that's any tips on how to offer liberal returns. Oh, any tips? I think that's what I was trying to say. Any tips on how to offer a liberal returns policy without breaking the bank? Well, our philosophy has always been at Zappos. There's a lot of stuff that we do that we couldn't do today that we couldn't afford to do in the early days of Zappos. We do, for example, surprise upgrades to overnight shipping for most of our loyal repeat customers, which is really expensive and definitely not something that we could have done in the early days. And so our, I guess the way we think about it is we work backwards. And so I wouldn't think of, you know, what's the most that you can do to match everyone else if you're trying to start a company. I really think of it as, okay, here's our financial plan, and we need to we need to make these numbers, and then work backwards from there. What's the most we can put into customer service or the customer experience, and still make those numbers, and then and that's kind of how we've done things at Zappos. In the early days of Zappos, we used to do surprise upgrades to 3-day shipping for our loyal repeat customers. And then once we could afford it, then we would make it 2-day shipping, and then eventually it became 1-day shipping. And similar thing with our returns policy. It used to be we had a 30-day return policy, and then it became 60, and then 90, and then 365. But we didn't start out at 365. It was a slow progression as we started growing the company. So, because the key thing is, whatever you're doing needs to be sustainable, and if the company's not going to be around 5 years from now, then it's not really helpful for anyone if you're super generous with customers from day one. You need to make sure the company's still in a good financial position 5 years, 10 years from now. In your book, you talk about going to raves around San Francisco. Do you still have time to enjoy music? Yeah, I guess I'm one of those people where I don't really know the names of bands or songs. I actually enjoy all types of music, and so for me, I'm actually I don't have a great music collection myself personally, like on iTunes, because I don't know the names of anything. So I actually use Pandora a lot, which is a great service, highly recommended. If you could go back in time and change something about your work, what would that be, and why? So in my book, I talk about how we rolled out. So Zappos was founded in 1999, and it wasn't. If you do a Google search for Zappos core values, you can see what our 10 core values are, and they essentially serve as a formalized definition of our culture. But we didn't always have core values. It wasn't until 4 or 5 years into the company that we rolled out our core values, and it was one of those things that a lot of us, myself personally, actually resisted in the early days, because it felt like one of those big corporate things to do. And I think part of the reason why I felt that way, and part of the reason why a lot of us resisted it, is because usually these large corporations have these things called core values or guiding principles and so on. But the problem is usually they sound like a press release that's put out by the marketing department, and maybe it's something you learn about on day one of orientation or on their website, but then it becomes this meaningless plaque on the lobby wall that no one pays attention to. And for us, we wanted to come up with committable core values, and by committable meaning we're actually willing to hire or fire people based on whether they're living up to those core values, independent of their actual job performance. And when you use that criteria, it's actually a really hard list to come up with. And um, it wasn't something that just a few people spent a long weekend at an offsite coming up with. I actually sent an email out to the entire company and asked everyone what should our core values be. And we went back and forth for about a year and eventually came up with our list of 10 core values. So I wish we had done that from day one, because it's a lot of decisions are actually a lot easier once you have those core values that you can actually commit to. Sorry, I lost my place. If you could, tell us something nobody knows about Tony Hsieh. That's a really hard one, because I'm generally pretty. I mean, one of our core values at Zappos is all about transparency, and so I'm pretty transparent. Liz, what's something that nobody knows about? I don't. Oh, okay. Here's This is a good time to show this watch, which is this an indie watch? I know it's a Mark Ecko watch, but anyways.
Yeah.
Do we sell it?
I don't.
Okay. Oh, so here's something that I'm not a watch person, and so because I tell them, but if I were a watch person, I would get this watch, because I always have the time on my cell phone, which I carry around. Last question: what has been the most enjoyable part of your career to date? I think it's really just the friendships that have been formed, and both employees at Zappos and with people that we do business with and come across during the time at Zappos. It's even if Zappos went away tomorrow, those friendships would still last, and for that I'm incredibly grateful. And I think I'm told that's the last question, so thank you very much for tuning in, and let's see, hold on, and I'm supposed to say Indie for life, so Indie for life.